Ahoj, tady je Elja. A tohle je 3. díl čtení 4. kapitoly knihy The Wild Edge of Sorrow, Rituals of Renewal and the Sacred Work of Grief od Francisa Valera. A tahle 4. kapitola se jmenuje Stories of Sorrow, Rituals of Renewal. A už jsme četli v první části ze strany 71 a v druhé části jsme dočetli až na stranu 82. A teď budu pokračovat. When we enter the healing ground, we are stepping into an alternate reality. In this space, the rules of consensus reality dim, and those of another possibility emerge. The usual agreements, such as not weeping together side by side or holding one another when in the throes of sorrow, don't hold in ritual space. Ritual signals to the psyche that a different order has been established, one that invites alternate styles of behavior and modes of social engagement. For example, we don't normally all weep together, but somehow, when we step across the threshold into a grief ritual, it feels right. We enter a borderland state between our individual lives and the unseen world of spirit. This is the terrain of radical change. Ritual provides the elements necessary to help transform whatever it is we are carrying in our psyches. It may be fear, grief, rage, or shame. It may be that as a community we have been shattered by the loss of one or more of our youth through murder, unaliving, or war. Whatever it is, it evokes an emotional response that necessitates a holding space in which we can invite everything to be present. In this way, ritual provides sufficient intensity to help access the emotions that are present. We need its heat, at times, to help us cook these states into something new. Ritual provides something else that we deeply need. A level of witnessing that truly enables us to be seen. Attention is necessary for embodiment, for fully stepping into the world in an open and vulnerable way. There is something sacred about sustained attention. It deepens the connection between all present. I have repeatedly seen individuals reveal themselves in remarkable ways inside ritual space. There is a fierce grace that comes with this type of transparency, as it removes all strategies of concealment and falseness and exposes the raw and naked pieces of our soul to the community. I remember in a number of rituals, men who always hang back, but finally they found the courage to approach the grief shrine near the end of the ritual and express their pent-up rage over their pain and suffering. Each of these men pounded the floor, shouted, wept, and shook. They had been waiting for this level of witnessing in order to fully reveal what they were carrying in their souls. Sometimes, after years of being alone with our pain, the offer of deep attention initiates a radical shift in our worldview. One woman contacted us following a grief ritual to share how this level of being witnessed had changed her life. She said she had arrived at the weekend terrified and not even sure if she could stay. I never would have thought that raw, searing grief and sorrow could bring out the most tender, generous, compassionate, and loving sides of total strangers. It was exquisite. I will carry this with me for the rest of my life. I saw in the darkness, in the darkest corners of our pain and grief, something very beautiful. Suffering compels us to reach. When you find a channel for your rage and deepest suffering, and there is another hand there reaching back, what lies in the wake of it all is finally blessed peace, calm. Nothing has changed about your loss. It's still there. But your relationship with it has been greatly altered. You have been heard and held tenderly. You have been drained. And then you can open yourself up again. You can start to rebuild in that annihilated place. Konec cytace. Rituals are intended to take us into those places where we can engage with the difficulties in our lives in ways that are potentially transformative. They help us move from places where we feel stuck into territories of fresh living. While most of us have a difficult time touching our sorrow, some of us feel that we may have gotten lost in it. We feel that grief has taken up a permanent residence in our hearts and souls. We are trapped, unable to break free from the emotions that swirl around our sorrow. Grief becomes an identity, a way of locating ourselves in the world. It can become a place of hiding. One man with whom I worked had lost his wife to cancer about 8 years earlier. It was clear that he still carried a great deal of grief for her death. There was something about the grief, however, that made me wonder whether he was unconsciously using it as a way to avoid retaking his place in the world. There was something about the grief, however, that made me wonder whether he was unconsciously using it as a way to avoid retaking his place in the world. I didn't assume that this was a conscious decision on his part, but one day these words came out of my mouth. I think you are hiding in your grief. I have no right to say this to you. Your loss is real, and yet I have this feeling that you have found a place to hide. I didn't know what to expect as a response, but something inside of him registered the truth of what I was saying. He began to see how his clinging to the grief excused him from the risk of loving again, of venturing back out into the world that could hurt him once more. As we explored this further, it became clear that we needed to find a way to help him move in the direction of being engaged with the world. We arranged a ritual with his community and made the necessary preparation for the event. I asked him to gather some objects that represented his marriage, things that he would be willing to burn in the ritual. He found some objects and placed them inside a small coffin made by one of the men in the community. He also wrote out the days of sorrow, a list of the fateful days of his wife's illness, the day the cancer was diagnosed, the day they told the children, the day it was declared terminal, the day she entered the hospital, and the day she died. He also wrote the days of joy, the day they got married, the birth dates of their children, his wife's birthday, and his. Finally, he prepared a statement of commitment that he would share that night. On the night of a full moon, we met on a hill and started 2 fires. The first fire was dedicated to receiving the coffin, the days of sorrow, and his tears. This was where he needed to sit down his grief. He wept and talked to his wife, telling her that he had to get on with his life. It was very tender. After some time, he felt as though he was ready to move on. I had him stand and take in the world around him, the rising moon, the setting sun, the feeling of fire, everything that surrounded him. I told him, "This is your home. This is where you live. You cannot live in her world." You live here. And I said that. He nodded, and we stepped away from the fire. He turned and proceeded to a threshold we had created between the 2 fires, a symbolic boundary that separated the old world from the one he needed to re-enter. He stepped across this line and made his way to the second fire, where he shared the days of joy and his declaration to be alive. Then he shattered an object that represented the old agreements. He felt free. As Terry Tempest Williams has said, "Grief dares us to love once more." Some months after the ritual, I checked in with him. He told me that he was dating again and stepping into his world in new ways. The ritual had offered him a way to return to his life. One of the central gifts of deep ritual is its ability to help us enter a state of derangement. This word is ominous, conjuring images of men and women out of control, wreaking havoc across the countryside with weapons and terror. What I mean by derangement is simply a state that is beyond our normal way of perceiving and experiencing ourselves and the world. Ritual invites the full expression of our long suppressed emotions. Grief, in particular, requires a letting go, whereby we drop deeply into the well of sorrow that has gathered and is longing for release. We cannot do this without entering into an altered state. Derangement is necessary because our current emotional arrangement is not working. We often find ourselves clinging to control, self-conscious, hypervigilant, and fearful of showing our emotions to others. This carefully arranged relationship with life denies us the freedom to receive the support we require from our community in times of loss. When we cross the threshold and enter into the healing ground of ritual, we're able to pass into a territory that grants us permission to be authentically who we are. This move initiates a rearrangement that brings us closer to the genuine nature of our soul. We don't want to come out of the ritual the same as we entered. We don't want to come out of the ritual the same way as we entered. We step into ritual ground in the hope of being changed. In ritual space, the community that has gathered may experience a shared derangement. At the end of a grief ritual, one man observed, "We conjured some weather today. You know, like one of those big Midwestern storms with dark clouds and lots of thunder. Then the storm broke, and now the air is clean and fresh." These times of entering into a shared state of attunement offer a unique opportunity to experience what anthropologist Victor Turner called communitas. From his time living with various tribes in Africa. Zase tady Afrika jako prostě jedno místo. Prostě Afrika. From his time living with various tribes in Africa, he witnessed how the feeling of belonging and social bonding were strengthened in the midst of deep ritual process. We need times of communitas, times that reinforce our connection with one another. Ritual can bring us into that state of togetherness, and there we can remember our deeper affinity and communality. Ritual does not rid us of the wounds we carry or free us forever from the weight of grief. Ritual is a maintenance practice that offers us the means of tending wounds and sorrows, for offering gratitude and for reconciling conflicts, thereby allowing our psyches regular periods of release and renewal. Being human is hard, especially in a society virtually devoid of rituals that are intended to help us wade through the waters of living intact. When we accumulate too much grief or feel outside the circle of welcome for too long and cannot see any means to resolve the breach, we spin toward depression or wander into the wasteland of toxic bitterness. Ritual offers us a way home. Learning how to bring ritual into our lives helps us face whatever arrives at our door. Ritual is a covering, a mantle that protects us in times of great need. The stories I have shared reveal the ways that we are held within the sacred space of ritual. Once again, I encourage you to experiment with rituals. Gather a circle of people and allow the imagination to inform the moment. We need to build faith in ourselves as ritually literate people. At times, we will be asked to create rituals that can address the wounds of suffering in our community. Someone has died or is ill, has lost his or her job, or is facing a divorce. At other times, we will need to spontaneously create a ritual to help hold space for someone who is in intense pain and grief. It can be very simple. The main thing is that we begin to take risks, that we contribute something to the moment that can potentially offer healing. Once we begin the ritual, it is out of our hands. It now belongs to Spirit. Life is far too complex to rely solely on our intellect. Life is far too complex to rely solely on our intellect. We need the invisible hands of Spirit to shelter us, to support us, to offer us the nourishing comfort that comes from that other world. This concert between the human and the sacred is ancient. It is held in the bones. Trust this bond. It is our healing ground. Tak jsem skončil na straně 88 tohleto 4. kapitolku s názvem Stories of Sorrow, Rituals of Renewal z knihy Francise Wellera The Wild Edge of Sorrow. Tohle byl Elja a já se loučím a buďte na sebe hodný. Pa.